This is Pastor M.D. Lewis speaking in behalf of the Bible Interpreter tapes on the Joseph story and the subject, Benjamin is trapped in the sack. I call your attention to the 15th verse of the 42nd chapter of Genesis. Hereby you shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not go forth hence except your youngest brother cometh hither. Now that youngest brother was Benjamin. Now you recall that Benjamin and Joseph had the same mother, Rachel, and that Rachel died in childbirth with her last baby, Benjamin. And she was buried at Ephrathah, near Bethlehem. Now Joseph said to his brethren, he has been condemning them as spies, and they have been vigorously objecting to the fact that they are not spies. And inadvertently, they advanced what they thought would be a good argument to indicate that they were not spies, to the fact that they were all the sons of one father. Therefore intimating, and perhaps they so said, that it would be a ridiculous thing for a father to send 10 of his sons on a spying mission with the possibility that some of them may be caught and executed, and have the whole family of boys together. If they were being interrogated under pressure, they might reveal the fact that they were brothers, or that they may reveal certain facts if they were spies, and it would be disastrous. They would wipe out the family, the entire family. So they said spying would be a very hazardous work, and it isn't likely that one father would send all 10 of his brothers to spy on such a hazardous mission. So they thought that might be a good argument, and perhaps it was. For the ruler, which is Joseph, unbeknownst to them, said to them, verse 16, send one of you and let him fetch your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh you shall surely are spies, and you'll be punished to that effect. So he first said, I'm going to put you all in prison, except the one whom you select to go and bring your brother. Now I suppose he did that to indicate his harshness and strike fear in them, and then he relented and said, no, I'll change my mind. But he put them, as says in verse 17, and he put them all together into ward, that is, into prison, 3 days. Now here again comes that term 3 days, which we have already explained, is the 3 days in which the Hebrew people illustrated the great basic principles of salvation. That is, one day a person has the opportunity of making a decision for the destiny of his soul. When the sun goes down, the days change, and sundown represents death. So when sun goes down, the first day, the second day begins, and death has occurred. So the person sleeps in the tomb the second day. No matter how long it is, it will be just but a moment to the person who is sleeping. And then the third day, they will be released from prison, or released from the pit, or released from the grave, to stand before God to accept the final destiny of their soul. So the Hebrew people illustrated and taught the great principles of plan of salvation in the light of 3 days, and that number 3, of course, bears the insignia of heaven. So he said, listen, I'm going to just put you fellows in prison. You choose one to go up and get your brother to prove whether or not you fellows are telling the truth and that you are not spies. So it says, he put them in the ward 3 days. Now notice how each of these days are accounted for. And you understand, the first day he puts them in, that is counted 1 day. And it is because of their life and their decisions that he is convicting them as spies and worthy of execution, if not imprisonment, and he puts them in prison. So that's the first day. They apparently remained all one whole day, and then it says, verse 18, and Joseph said unto them the third day. So apparently he contacts them on the third day, and says, This do and live, for I fear God. If you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye carry corn for the famine of your houses. So he thought better of this, to let them return with their food to keep their families alive, and he would take one of them and put him in prison. So you see, he just reversed the idea. He first was to send one to get Benjamin, put the rest of them in jail, and now he says, we'll take one and put him in jail, and the rest of you go back and take your food and get your brother. So now the question is, which one of these is he going to take? Now you understand this whole episode that we're now dealing in is a plan that Joseph has to prove, to see whether or not his brothers have the same attitude towards their youngest brother, which in this case would be Benjamin, as they had toward him. Now this is exactly what all this is about, is to test their character, to see whether or not they have repented and whether or not they have a still harsh attitude of persecution against the youngest child. So the whole affair is Joseph is testing his brethren. So he said, now you go get your brother, this youngest one, and I want him to come, because very likely Joseph has in mind what he's going to do with his younger son, which is his full brother, to see whether or not the other brothers will stand up for him or let him go down in destruction if it ever came into some hazardous situation. So he's going to test them to see whether or not they would treat Benjamin like they did him in a case of pressure. So finally he says to them, you go and get your brother, and I will come. Now, who is he going to select out of these 10 to put in prison? Now, in the 19th verse it says, and if you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison, and go you and carry your food to your famine of your houses. But bring your youngest brother unto me, so your words be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. So, in other words, they're under death penalty unless they carry out what he has to say. Now, he selects one. And in the Spiritual Gifts, Volume 3, page 157, it says, Joseph selected Simeon to be bound because he was the principal actor in the cruelty of his brethren toward him. In other words, it was Simeon who said to the brethren, when Joseph came with his coat in many colors and said to inquire about their welfare, it was Simeon who said, let's take his coat and from him and kill him. So Joseph picked out this particular person and to put him in jail as a symbol of death and destruction. Now, they might have figured that out, but apparently they did not tumble to the fact that he is picking the one who is most guilty. And of course, this reveals tremendous basic principle in the biblical revelation found in 2 Samuel, the 3rd chapter, verse 39. 2 Samuel 3, verse 39, and it says, I am this day weak, though anointed king. This is David talking to his subjects after Abner has been killed by Joab. He said, I am this day weak though anointed king, and these men, the sons of Zeruiah, which was Joab and his brother, are too hard for me. The Lord shall reward to the doer of evil according to his wickedness. Now, this particular principle that he states here, that God will reward a person according to his wickedness, is the basic principle of the function of all law in the Bible, whether it be natural law, the Ten Commandments, or any other law. It is always based upon the function, what you sow, you reap. With what measure you measure to others, it shall be measured to you again. And here Joseph is illustrating this principle by the fact that it was Simeon who said, let's kill him and throw him in a pit. And so now Joseph throws Simeon in a pit, which here is a prison, which in the Bible, of course, as we said before, is symbolically the same. So here he's working out this great principle, what you sow, you shall reap. And they took him and put him in the pit. Now, in the next verse, 21, we have this very fine statement, and they said one to another. Now, when the one brother was put in jail, and the others are told to leave, they have a conversation among themselves, not knowing that Joseph understood their language. Because he had been using an interpreter, they thought that they were safe in speaking in their native tongue. And this is what they said. And they said one to another, we are verily guilty according to concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. Now notice how they interpret this. They interpret the fact that Simeon has been thrown into prison as equal to Joseph thrown in the pit. For they say, we were very guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul. You remember when they sat there and ate around the mouth of the pit, while their brother was pleading for deliverance from the pit, in which he knew, unless they would help him, he would die in that circumstance. So they see that in case they, in the event that they are not able to bring Benjamin back, then Simeon is as good as dead. So now they see that what they did to Joseph in putting him in the pit to let him die has now brought upon them their own conduct in Simeon being put into the prison, and he will die there unless they can produce Benjamin, and they feel that their father would not be willing to let him go. So this, they said, when he sought us and pled with us, we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. Now, it infers here, although the text does not say, it's quite likely that Simeon pled with them not to leave him in jail to die in Egypt. But they had no recourse. Apparently, they went off and left him. And Reuben answered them, saying, and he talked further with the brothers, saying, spake I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear. Therefore, behold, all his blood is required. Now, you remember we brought out the point that they were going to kill him, and they said, we will conceal his blood. Well, there is no possibility in the judgment of God that anybody would ever conceal blood under any circumstances. It will all be revealed in the judgment. And they realize now that they're being judged, and they're going to have to give an account of it. So, they see that their life is coming back upon them again. Now, you notice in the next text, when Joseph sees these brethren discussing this issue of his being in the well, and they're not yielding to his pleading, and now very likely they never were unable to yield to Simeon if indeed he pled for their help and assistance. Joseph sees in this the great heart of God in weeping for his son, so to speak, in the fact that he was put in the pit for the human race, and his blood would be accountable for their salvation. And he wept. Now, in the book of John, the Gospel of John, the 11th chapter, verse 33, the shortest verse in the entire Bible, when Jesus, under a similar circumstance, saw that Martha and Mary wept for their brother Lazarus, which Christ could have recovered from death by coming, when they sent the message for him to come, saying, Lazarus, your friend is sick. They said, when Jesus finally came and Lazarus had died, they said, Master, had you been here, our brother would not have died. And it is true also in this case, had God intervened, they would have never put Joseph in the pit, and Simeon would not be in the prison, which symbolizes the pit. So when he saw the compassion of these brethren towards Simeon, which they did not exhibit towards him when he was in a similar circumstance, he is touched by their feelings, and it says here, and he turned himself about from them and wept. This is fulfilled, you see, in a similar experience of Christ as recorded in John 11:33, under the circumstance of Mary and Martha, that had he come when they called, and he desired to do so, he would have saved Lazarus from the pit and from prison. But because he wanted to show them that he was the power of the resurrection, he stayed. But his staying away permitted Lazarus to die and caused Mary and Martha to weep. And he was so moved by their compassion towards their brother that he wept in sympathy with them. And that's the same thing here. When he sees their sympathy towards Simeon, it caused him to weep. So you see, in all the detail, the Joseph story, true to its overall basic plan, is revealing Christ in Egypt, and Christ is fulfilling the aspects of this Joseph story as we have indicated. Now, it is certain that in the 42nd chapter of Genesis and verse 25, that now he begins to lay the plan for Benjamin and his trapping, and he has a very definite purpose in mind, of course, in doing this. So in this 42nd chapter, verse 25, then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provisions for the way, and he did so, and put the money in their sacks and sent them away. Well, you remember that after they had gone so far, that one of them, supposed to get food out for his donkey or for themselves, found the money in his sack. And of course this prompted a great fear in their heart, and apprehension that now they might be caught thinking that they got the grain and didn't pay for it. And it was very much a concern. And when they got back to Canaan, and all of them took down their sacks and opened them, they all found the money in the mouth of their sacks, as it says in the verse 35. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, they beheld every man's money was in the sack. Now, this has a significant meaning, as brought out in the book of Isaiah, the 45th chapter. In this particular book, and the 13th verse, it says, I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways, and he shall build my city, and he shall let go my captives, not for price nor reward, saith the Lord of hosts. Now here it says that this is speaking of Cyrus, that God had raised him up in righteousness. Well, you see, that's exactly the position that Joseph has as God's servant and the great builder of the principles of heaven in Egypt. I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all of his ways. Now, Joseph had absolute confidence that God would do that. And then it says here that he shall let my captives go, not for price nor reward, saith the Lord of hosts. And in the 52nd chapter of the same book, it says in verse 1 or verse 3, for thus saith the Lord, you have sold yourselves for naught, and you shall be redeemed without money. Now, this is definitely an observation that Joseph made of his brother, that they sold themselves for naught in plotting his death and planning to kill him and send him into Egypt. But despite that fact, he would not charge them for his services, and they received the means of their livelihood without money, symbolizing that the bread that he sold them was a type of the righteousness of Christ, which is to be given without money. So you see how the principles are constantly revealed. So finally they come to a place back in Canaan that they have eaten up all the grain that they have gotten from Egypt. And so it says in Genesis 43, 1 and 2, and the famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their fathers said unto them, go again and buy us a little food. Now let me call your attention again. It is really a paradox that God's saints in the land of Canaan have to send down to Egypt to get food. Now they're very much unaware that God has sent into the land of Egypt, which represents this world of sin controlled by Satan to a great extent, that God has made provision for food for not only for them but for Joseph. So they begin to get into discussion, and so the boys bring it up to Jacob their father, there's no sense of us going down there, they said, unless we take our brother with us. Now, apparently, Simeon, as found in the latter part of the 42nd chapter of Genesis, it says, And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, Slay my 2 sons, if I bring not to thee the boy, deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, My son shall not go down with you. Now, apparently, Jacob did not have confidence in the stability of Reuben, for no doubt he understood that because of his sin and transgression, he never stood up for Joseph in any way at home, and no doubt he would not stand up for Benjamin, his last son by his favorite wife. So it says in the 3rd chapter of the 3rd verse of Genesis 43, now Judah steps forward. Now you have a tremendous drama here that is going to maneuver and reveal that Judah has the qualities to receive the birthright of progenitorship, that is relating to God in such a manner that the Savior would be born through his lineage. Now watch how this develops. Verse 3 now of the 43rd chapter of Genesis. Judah spake unto him, saying, The man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, You shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. So he says to his father, there's no sense of us going down to buy food unless you permit Benjamin to go with us, and I will be surety for him. Now verse 8 he emphasizes it more by saying, And Judah said unto Israel his father, Send the lad with me, and we will rise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him. If I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee, then let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned the second time. In other words, if we hadn't hesitated over this issue, we would already be on our way before this into the land of Egypt to get the food. So finally, the father says to him that I will let him go, and may God show you mercy. That's verse 14. And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send you your brother and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I be bereaved. So finally, Jacob finally concludes the fact that you've got to have food or we'll die. And so he said, the Lord be with you and give you mercy that this man down in Egypt will be merciful and return Simeon along with Benjamin. So it says, and when Joseph saw Benjamin, so they went down and to Egypt and took Benjamin. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, Bring these men home and slay and make ready for them that they may dine with me at noon. So he did. Well, you remember that they thought that perhaps by calling him to his home that they were going to really reap the evil consequence of having the money in their sack. But when they got together in their home, Joseph had another plan as far as Benjamin is concerned. So when they sat down to eat, it says in verse 33 that he sat before him the firstborn according to his birthright. So when Joseph set them at the table, and they are all there now, and he himself is there, but not in their group. So he puts them down in order: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, and goes right around and puts, of course, Benjamin at the end of the line, showing he is the youngest son. And now he is going to bring a test. And he told the waiter that he is to take, verse 34 of this chapter, and he took and set messes unto them from before him. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs, and they drank and were merry. So he made a very distinct recognition of Benjamin as the baby of the family, and perhaps as his brother, and he gave him 5 times more than he did the others. Now, this was to test them. This placing of this food before them was a very distinctive symbol indicating that he was distinguishing Benjamin in a very prominent way. Now, in the book of 1 Samuel, the 9th chapter and verse 24, it says, when Samuel was making preparation for the selection of Saul as the king of Israel, it says, and the cook took up the shoulder that was which was upon it, and set it before Saul. And Samuel said, Behold, that which is left, set it before thee, and eat, for unto this time hath it been kept for thee, since I said, I have invited the people. So Saul did eat with Samuel that day. And when they were come down from the high place into the city, Samuel communed with Saul upon the top of the house. And they rose early, and it came to pass about the spring of the day that Samuel called Saul to the top of the house and said, I am sending thee away. And Saul arose, and they went out, both of them, and he and Samuel abroad. So the verse before the 24th one, verse 23, says that Samuel took this very special portion of the lamb and set it before Saul, indicating, as it says in verse 22, the chiefest place among them that were bidden. So of all the people that came to the feast, where they're going to make certain who shall become the king of Israel, Samuel put a special dish in front of Saul, indicating that he was the one that they were going to select as king. So when David put this special food portions in front of Benjamin, no doubt they read the fact that Benjamin was going to be selected as the one to become king, and this would ordinarily, as it was the case of Joseph, incense them against him. But it says they went on and they ate and were merry, and Joseph was pleased that it didn't cause them any trouble. But he had another plan. This would really put them under stress. You remember he told his servant to fill their bags and put the money back in, and then take the silver cup that he had. This is Genesis 44, verse 2, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest of the group. And he did. He put it in Benjamin's bag, and then he let them get out of town, and then he sent his officer out and told them, he said, look, somebody has stolen the ruler's silver cup, by which he determines whether or not poison has been put in the cup to take his life, and you have jeopardized his life by doing so. And when they searched all the bags, you remember, they found it in the bag of Benjamin. And now, he said, he took them back and said, now, with whomsoever of the servants it be found, both let him die, and we will also be my Lord's bondmen. This is what the brethren said. If this cup is found in any of our bags, let that person die. Well, when they found it in Benjamin's cup, they had already pronounced his execution. So you see how Joseph has brought about this plot to put him in a position, and Joseph had in mind to trap Benjamin in the sack, and now he is up for death. And as a type of God's Son, someone's going to have to intervene, and this is how the plot will continue in our next study.